Hi, I'm Ben.
No, you're not.
Normal bagwet.
Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Stefan.
Hurry up, we're gonna go at 3:30.
and we are Animating in 3!
Animating in 3.
We are an animation podcast where we talk about animated movies and series, so you don't have... No, I'm copying another podcast.
We do it because we have very little else.
Yep, that's the reason. And today we are going to be talking about the 2008 to 2009 animated series
Spectacular Spiderman.
presented by Stefan. But before we get into that, we're going to be talking about Toons we've tuned into.
Tunes the dub.
Our favourite easy to pronounce segment.
Best.
Yeah, so...
Michael, what have you been watching animated-wise, you jerk?
I watched Toy Story 4.
Oh, okay.
I actually,
That's right.
This is the first week when I have an answer.
Yeah, and what do
Whoa.
you think?
I didn't like it as much as the other three. I thought it was good. We had a lengthy discussion
Yeah.
about this online, kind of talking about how it seems a little bit more kind of light and fluffy and inconsequential, or less ambitious than the kind of the first three felt. Because the first three felt very much like quite like reasonably mature family films, but this one felt a little bit more in line with kind of like unambitious kind of kids entertainment, where even though the core moral about kind of familial responsibility and fatherhood are very sound and very adult messages, and messages that can be enjoyed by adults and especially parents, I think the overall kind of actions of all the characters and the comedy and kind of the feel of the world was very kind of like watery and a little bit bland.
I've actually seen lots of reviews say similar things where they said they actually quoted the breeziest of the four films.
Yeah.
I feel as if
Yeah, the other ones have kind of like, I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but the other ones have kind of like, not an edge to them, but there is kind of a maturity and like this weird kind of farcical, sarcastic quality to a lot of it. And
how-
this one doesn't have it.
Like how Ben said, though, if you view it as an epilogue, kind of an after the main action sort of story,
Yeah.
it kind of does it seem better in that sense?
Well, it's kind of strange because the end of Toy Story 3 is a very definitive, there's finality to it. It's the end of an arc, and it's a perfect ending. And this is kind of strange because it's another ending, if that makes sense.
But it's only an end to... I don't want to spoil it for anything, but it's an end to Woody's arc.
Yeah, it's very much the Woody movie because everyone else is very much sidelined. Also, Buzz is an idiot now.
Yeah.
What?
He's not smart
He's
in this.
Yeah, he's kind of like a one joke, very dumb character in this.
Huh.
But
Yeah.
it's like, I don't think it's all bad, but you know, there's a lot of concepts that I don't think. While the film obviously it's Pixar, it's a creative powerhouse, but at the same time, they don't go fully creative. There's not many risks taken with the film at all.
Say what you will about John Lasseter, and like he's not a very good guy.
Oh no!
But the creativeness behind everything he did,
yeah.
like you could feel it wasn't there because he's not at Pixar anymore.
Yeah, like there's a very distinct voice behind the early Pixar films when they feel weirdly kind of mature and they're very funny. And this one, like, it got like a chuckle out of me and like out of the theater.
I thought it was equally as funny.
I don't think
would
it
say.
was that
It's
funny.
just different jokes.
It's not that
it's
kind
a different sense
it's
of
not
humor.
that kind of like biting, cutting, like quick whip that the other ones have. It's a much more kind of lackadaisical, casual,
Yeah.
kind of kid-friendly humor. And that's how I kind of feel about the whole film. It is beautiful though. I think it's the best looking Pixar
definitely.
film. That kind of thing where it's distractingly pretty. Like I don't look at character faces. I'll look at like grass or the sky or just like shadows. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful looking film. And again, I'm not trying to like undermine the achievement. Like,
Do you think it's worth, like, would you recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it as of yet?
I think it's a completely unnecessary watch.
Okay.
Like, that sounds a little bit harsh, but, like, I don't think you need it. I didn't, like, I guess it's me, but I didn't enjoy it as much as because we watched Toy Story 1 recently for the podcast, and I liked that much better. I thought that had it just had kind of, while it is very much a children's film or a family film, it has this kind of odd adult, like, tonality. that punctuates the entire thing. And the fourth one doesn't really have that. It's very cuddly and very soft all the way through.
It's definitely more of a kids' film this time.
There's kind of horror elements in the middle, but I don't think it goes... It doesn't push it enough.
Actually, I know a few people who are really creeped out about that, but they don't like horror films.
Yeah, there's nothing as... Yeah, they visit a location that is kind of set up as a horror location, and it never really fully commits to that tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Stefan, what have you been watching?
I watched the Lego Movie too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so did I.
It's so fun. I love it. It was really, really great. Like, I liked how it literally is the next stage from the last movie. I can't really explain anything without spoiling anything, but it takes the human character arcs to the next level of who they focus on. And it also takes the Lego characters of, like, Wildstyle / Lucy and Emmett to newer levels that I thought was really interesting. And it has a sort of meta humor that I thought was really mature and, like, very acknowledging of the audience. Like, I hate when meta humor's kind of just pasted in, but in this film, like, meta humor really, it relies on the audience being smart and kind of constantly thinking as they're watching.
It's very much the Lord and Miller type meta humor. It's
Yeah.
very similar throughout all their films.
Lord and Miller are really great animation directors.
Definitely.
Like, they're
And
so
producers,
fun at
yeah.
it.
There's a kinetic energy to pretty much everything they do, animation-wise, yeah.
Even live action wise as well, I would say.
What I really love is this film was I don't know whether they got a higher production than the first Lego movie.
Yes, by 40 million.
It shows. It looks
I
gorgeous.
don't think it did as well, though.
No, it didn't.
I think
poorly.
it didn't do... Yeah, I'm not sure why.
200 million worldwide.
I think
I'm not sure what the secret is.
I think what Ben said is he said because there was an oversaturation of Lego films with the Lego Ninjago
and Lego Batman film, because they weren't as well received as the Lego movie.
Yeah.
So I think it just kind of, like, as well as the oversaturation, it just kind of people soured on them.
What do you think, Stefan?
I loved every scene visually. Like, visually, it was just a treat. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can say
it's
what
eye
you
candy.
would about the writing or the world in which it creates, but some of the action scenes, especially with the new character they introduced, Rex Dangerfield, his spaceship colony of raptors.
Oh, they are hilarious.
Have you seen it, Ben?
The Lego movie? Yeah. I also watched it the same night he happened to as well.
Okay.
It's just got a really interesting palette because this isn't a spoiler because it's shown in the trailer, but it goes to like a space. It's got more of a space aesthetic, so you get like nice purples, some really nice contrast in like with Lego pieces, and some really playful set pieces that are just really fun to watch.
And it has the best plot twist in all cinematic history at the very end.
I kind of want to watch it.
Oh yeah, that was a really fun plot twist. It was just it's
It's inconsequential, really,
Yeah.
but it's such a great twist.
it's one of those things where you look at it and go, oh, that kind of makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, with everything that happened in the film and the previous film, it makes sense. And what have you been watching? Anything else?
Yes, because we talked about the trailer for the Teen Titans Go movie that's been released, I started watching from the start Teen Titans Go.
Okay,
It is so silly. Like, it is.
definitely.
Like, comparing it to Teen Titans, and I want to watch Teen Titans again, just so I have it fresh in my mind, but it is so ridiculously silly. The very first shot of the entire series is Raven watching a show about unicorns eating cake. That's your intro to this world. Just unicorns going, what should we do, pink flower? And it's like, no, this is
okay,
weird.
but even though it's silly, what do you think of it, like, overall?
I think it's really fun. Like, genuinely, in terms of its humor, it's slapstick, it's got some visual, really fun gags. It's very much episodic, nothing really grand.
Yeah.
You don't expect any villains. It's pretty much a slice of life kind of daily, how these guys live. But the animation is just really fun. It's rigged puppet animation with really nice follow-throughs and whatnot. So, I can't see why it's not fun to most people, but
People just have their preference, that's
yeah.
all.
But I thought it was great. Anyhow, what about you?
There wasn't a new episode of Archer. I forgot to watch Final Space. But I watched a bit of the Clone Wars. 3D Clone Wars, because I'm doing my Star Wars watch up until the Rise of Skywalker. And yeah, it's good.
We're both halfway through Amphibia.
Yeah, and Amphibia, it's just really fun. It's so fun watching Anne, who is the main character, just trying to live in this frog-inhabited world.
The frogs have such unique like characters, and it's just really interesting to see what stories they've made with all these little frog characters. Like, I haven't seen a show that's focused on frogs, to be honest.
Yeah. And then there was also in the mid-season episode...
What about those bumpers from Play School in the late 90s?
Do they feature frogs?
Remember the frogs that go la-di-da-di-da?
We all know frogs go la-di-da-di-da.
Oh goodness, I have haunting memories of that.
La-di-da-di-da.
Stop. That's
I hope all our very specific demographic of listeners had violent post-traumatic flashbacks to late 90s ABC.
But yeah, there was the mid-season episode, because it's doing 4 episodes a week for 5 weeks in a row, which is 20 episodes. We watched the mid-season, and it was not focused on any of the characters we've ever seen before.
No, it's kind of forwarding the main plot of the series, which is the 3 Lost Girls. It did some really interesting things with how it introduced and kind of grounded their antagonistic characters, so to speak.
It doesn't seem like they're antagonistic characters, but just people trying to survive in this crazy world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that episode features Troy Baker, who was a very famous voice actor, and also Anna Akana, a famous YouTuber.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's Sasha.
Oh, that's really cool. I always love when I hear that YouTubers get voice acting roles. Like, that just seems really cool to me.
And that's all we've been watching this week. Oh, I watched Stranger Things, but that's not animated.
Oh, did that come out?
Yeah,
The season
yesterday.
3? Oh, really?
Yeah, I watched the first 3 episodes.
Oh, 8.
So, Stefan, take it away with Spectacular Spiderman.
We got it. So, the new Spider-Man film, Far From Home, is coming out. Well,
It is out.
It is out. Ben's seeing it tonight. Michael's already seen it. He's got his reservations for what he thinks of it.
He read all the spoilers beforehand, though, so...
Good on him. So, we don't really need an introduction to Spider-Man as such, because everyone knows him. He's the poster child for Marvel. I think we're going to be focusing on the Spectacular Spider-Man, which was a 2008 series. But we'll start with who Spider-Man is, just briefly. So,
It's Benton.
Shut up, Ben!
Edit that out.
Spider-Man was created in 1962 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko.
Who both passed away last year.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
Yeah, I know. Like, a lot of people know Stan Lee, but Steve Ditko, who was very much a big part of Marvel, and still was, I'm assuming.
It's kind of sad. He got like the tiniest column in the local newspaper when he passed away. There's like this tiny little footnote when there wasn't even a picture of him. There was just a picture of Spider-Man.
No, that's sad.
That's really sad.
To be fair, he was famously reclusive, and I think there's only 2 or 3 confirmed photos of him in circulation.
Oh,
at the
okay.
moment. So, and they're all from like the early 1960s, and also famous for the original kind of initial art on Doctor Strange.
That's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's famous for all kind of those like cosmic landscapes and kind of this surreal art.
But yeah, so Spider-Man premiered in Amazing Fantasy 15.
Yeah.
So when was Amazing Fantasy...
Amazing Fantasy is an anthology kind of pulp series, so it didn't initially. Usually, you get like a couple of stories, or every week there'd be a different character, and depending on the success of some of the characters, they would be spun off into their own solo series. And Spider-Man debuted in Amazing Fantasy 15 in 1962. I think it's the April issue because I think it was a monthly magazine, and was spun off incredibly quickly. Because he was, I think it was the highest selling issue of Amazing Fantasy at that point.
He has such an eye-catching design.
Yeah.
Even if you were to see his comic book for the first time, you'd go, whoa, red and black colour costume, that looks amazing. What's this?
Yeah,
gonna
it's
be
initially
about?
red and black with the blue highlights, because that denotes kind of trying to highlight black in limited dot matrix printing,
Which Far From Home tries to do.
I don't really like. I feel like it is his original suit, but that's not the one that became iconic.
Yeah.
The blue and red became iconic, and I feel like that's the one that you should not like. Delve into other stuff, into different looks, but I feel like you should always kind of go back to the classic one.
So Spider-Man pretty much is like, he is the superhero. When you think of superheroes like pop culture wise, usually you think you're
he sells the most
Batmans,
merchandise
and Spider-Man.
Yeah, he sells the most merchandise out of any of them.
Like Marvel-wise?
Any
superhero.
superhero by a wide margin.
Which is why Sony has made the deal with Marvel to do the shared custody of Spider-Man, where because Spider-Man is so popular, Marvel can make all their money they want off of the Spider-Man merchandise, while Sony just gets the box office.
I mean, that's a fair trade-off, I think.
Which
that
is
works.
which is the Sorry, the new films are doing reasonably well as well.
Yeah.
I think this one is projected to crack $1 billion, so Sony will be very happy with that. But also, Venom almost cracked $1 billion, so who cares?
But we're focusing on the Spectacular Spider-Man. So, the Spectacular Spider-Man is an American animated series that lasted from 2008 to 2009 and was developed by Victor Cook and Greg Weisman. The series was intended to incorporate materials from the original Spider-Man runs, as well as heavy inspiration from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy and the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. Because you got to realize the last Spider-Man movie, which was of the Raimi trilogy, which was in 2007, was just when this series started its production.
Yeah, it was
in terms
2
of
years.
animation.
Yeah, 2 years prior.
No, 1 year. Like 2007, and this was 2008.
Oh wait, when release or production started?
Oh, a release.
Yeah, release.
Oh, it was released 2008.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said 2009.
So production
before.
probably
That
was
was the last
started 2007 when the movie was released.
Okay.
That's why there's a lot of Venom stuff within this series, because Venom was the big thing in.
Yeah, but I think famously Venom had there was like an associate producer at Sony that was always pushing to insert Venom into projects.
Exactly.
Until he finally got his own movie.
Yeah, and how good did that turn out? I mean, financially fantastic, but in terms of artistry, just an affront to the Lord, basically. But
I don't think it's that bad.
It's not that bad, but it's just an movie.
So it sought to attract a younger audience, but also the older, more well-versed fans aware of previous series and incarnations of the character.
yeah, there are a lot of visual nods to the Raimi trilogy.
Oh, definitely.
Like the Daily Bugle is the Flatiron Building, and
The same type of spider.
Yeah, the spider is red and blue. Yeah.
Weisman, one of the developers, stated that they tried to follow, specifically for the series, the principles that they coined as the 5 Cs. That was it being contemporary, cohesive, coherent, classic, and
Crap.
This is not a C, but iconic.
Okay.
Why was that part of the 5 Cs?
Because the conic part.
Why? So it was conic.
It's conical.
Iconic.
It's got a tapered point.
Even from that seems like a long list of things you want to try and do.
But I would say they succeeded.
I'd
with
say
that.
they do. And it actually, when you say it like that as what they were trying to achieve, it's very clear that that's what they were trying to achieve. So, chronologically, it's the 7th series to focus on Spider-Man,
Oh my god.
following Spider-Man 61,
Oh,
Spider-Man 80.
yeah.
Spider-Man-
Spider-Man 80?
Yeah, there was an 80s one. It was just really bad.
Oh, I don't know it's not that Japanese one, is it?
No, it's not. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Spider-Man the 90s one. Spider-Man Unlimited.
Okay.
Spider-Man the new animated series. And then this one came. So there's a lot of Spider-Man before
There's
this.
another one now,
And
isn't
there's
there?
been, I think 2.
There's been 2 more since.
Look,
I remember. The one I remember in terms of actually kind of watching, periodically is the '90s one. Yeah, I had a couple of tapes of it too.
I'm pretty sure I watched all of the 60s one because before I got ready for school back in primary school, it used to start at like 6:30, so I would watch that at 6:30. Then afterwards, I would just get ready for school after that.
Yeah.
so the series premiered on Kids WB. It was like a network segment on CW TV, while its second season was aired on Disney XD, and this is where the crossover with when it was bought out by Disney.
Where
and
Marvel was
whatnot.
bought out by
Yeah.
Disney.
It received high acclaim by critics and audiences alike. Again, this was almost seen as the definitive. This is the Spider-Man animated series of the modern era. Like, it combined both classic elements that people could recognize and understand, and also new elements that were more mature and more biting for a newer, more contemporary audience. In terms of production, this is where it's interesting as to why its visual keys are the way it is. So the animation was produced by Adelaide Studios, which was a direct-to-video television division by Sony Pictures.
Is it made in Adelaide, Australia?
No, it's not.
I was going to actually ask.
That's
you.
what really disappointed me.
Oh, no, at least like Screen Victoria does a lot of the special effects now
For Marvel films now.
for Marvel films. Yeah,
That's always cool.
Yeah.
Like Loomis Studios, go there, sponsor us.
Before Netflix does.
That's why I don't care what anyone says. The Me Bank building is in Black Panther.
Yeah, it is.
I
think
told
it
you about
is.
this. It's the same building.
So while most of the animation was like produced and managed by Adelaide Studios, most of the animation was outsourced by South Korean studios Hanho Hoan Up Co, Donnie Woo Animation, and OI Animation. So
Told
that's 3 separate studios.
Told you, Stefan, you just call the Koreans. They'll do anything.
But there's so many. Like, usually you only get, like, 1 to help with supporting animation. But the fact there was 3 suggests that they were really wanting to get as much as they could done for this.
It's a weekly series, so yeah.
A weekly series
on a
with,
deadline.
with a really...
With reasonably high quality animation.
Yeah. Surprisingly, the show had a relatively tight budget. Like, they were very strict on how much they could have. And so the directors, Weissman and Victor Cook, they decided to place more attention towards the animation and how everything moves more than how it looks, which is why they wanted to go for a more simplified animation style, but still try and keep
I still
things...
think the simplified look works, though.
I think it works really well because, as Michael said when we were watching it, they're caricatured to a point where you can see a character and you immediately know before it's even introduced who that character is. Like, the Vulture looks like a bird. Dr. Octavius looks like Dr. Octavius.
Yeah.
And
Norman Osborn
Has his weird sideways cornrows.
it's just a weird hairstyle.
I love it. It's just the one universal constant in most universes, except the Raimi trilogy.
Does he have it in the Amazing Spider-Man too?
Oh no, he doesn't, because he's the dying
Okay,
Goblin
so just
Man. in
so
the
just
bed.
live action stuff he doesn't
So
have.
just
then.
the cartoons and comics, he just always has his weird sideways cornrows hair.
But they stated that they wanted to really emphasize more of motion and energy within this series because the director thought that the Sam Raimi trilogy really set the bar to how Spider-Man can move. And so that's why they really emphasized that they should look at the kinetic energy as opposed to making them look really realistic.
I love how he moved when it was dancing down that street. It was the best movement in any Spider-Man film ever.
Well, it's definitely the most remembered, which is really sad. The series, despite being highly received by both fan and critic alike, was cancelled due to the handling of...
Just the one critic.
No, critics, sorry. Was cancelled due to handling of television rights, in which Spider-Man was handed back to Marvel. Marvel was bought out by Disney.
I'm fairly certain
and then
Sony still owns...
Sony owns the movie rights.
Yeah, the movie rights. Yeah.
Not the
Disney
television
owns
rights.
the television distribution. Okay.
Yeah, so that really stuffed up how this
So
series...
Disney is now producing whatever Spider-Man series is on now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Isn't it like being slammed or something?
I don't know.
It was originally meant to have 65 episodes, but because of this cancellation and the handling of it, it was put to 29, which really sucks.
That's unfortunate.
And it ended on a cliffhanger, which...
Because a lot of people seem to like it. So.
Yeah, everyone loved it. We'll talk a bit about the series now, just before we get into it. So, the themes centered heavily within the series, of course. He's in high school, so coming of age is, of course, a thing that's very important for him.
Has every film we watched been about coming of age?
Yeah, it has.
Ugh.
You don't really need to explain coming of age. Financial difficulties is one that I think is handled really well in this series.
Yeah.
Financial difficulties? This I can talk about.
No, like, Peter Parker's poorness is set in a way that's very, like, he has to deal with this problem, but it's never, like, not
Shit.
drawn to. It's just a thing that he has to deal with in his life.
There's not attention drawn to it. It's just
Yeah.
an aspect of his character.
Why don't
Which
they
I think-
move to a smaller house?
No, I was going to say that's kind of the main reason behind that creative decision in the cinematic universe versions of Spider-Man. They live in a apartment now because
Okay.
it's not feasible that a single widow with a nephew that's not working could support both of them and still maintain a home in Queens. So they live in kind of a cost efficient house, like a flat.
So, typical one, like, double life. Like, you can't really explain that one anymore. Like, it really focuses on how Peter Parker has his own subplots, and then Spider-Man has his own completely different agenda. They're almost two completely different characters.
Yet
that
they're
just...
always somehow tied together with someone he knows, which is very typical Spider-Man fashion.
Yeah, that's
of
very
villains.
Spider-Man. Also, the fact that Peter Parker can just never get a win. Like, he always loses. He fails at everything.
Even when people are throwing water balloons at him and he can dodge them so easily, he
Yeah,
has to get hit by them.
Just so people don't realize. So, that...
Well, he did amazing acrobatics to dodge those first 15, but him getting hit with the last one,
Seriously, some of the bullying in that feels so dated. Choices and consequences is a very important one in this because it really harkens to that Spider-Man trying to become his own person and the choices he makes being important. Which, because Marvel's all into the human aspects of its characters, really emphasizes that these characters are based on their choices and what they make defines them. And of course, the good old fashioned with great power comes great responsibility. They say it like 20 billion times in this series. They don't have Ben say it, but they even have Spider-Man himself saying it in the first episode.
Like, hey, you ever heard of this saying?
Yeah. It's weird in the cinematic universe how the incarnation of Spider-Man refuses to say it, or if he's going to say it, like kind of awkwardly rewords it. And the first person canonically in that universe to say "with great power comes great responsibility" is Jessica Jones.
That's really
Yeah,
odd.
that's right.
Yeah.
And the last one, which is important to the director in terms of themes, is the education of Peter Parker. He really saw this series as trying to be Peter Parker learning and getting himself into Spider-Man, since it's very much the early stages of his crime-fighting career.
Yeah, he's only been like crime fighting for what, like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Before the
But which is why he even structured the plots and the arcs in terms of like, if you look at the titles of the series, they're meant to reflect like certain subjects at school. Like the first 3 episodes are based on biology. That's why you got survival of the fittest interaction or something. And the last one was like
natural selection.
natural selection. That's it. And then the next few talk about like economics and whatnot. And it's a really interesting way in structuring your series based on subjects. But yeah, so just a brief synopsis. So the show focuses on the learnings and many, many failings of Peter Parker and follows his coming-of-age exploits as a high school student and his crime-fighting antics as the titular alter ego Spider-Man. So yeah, what did you guys think of opening thoughts on this series? We watched the first 4 episodes, by the way.
It's pretty good.
I think I'm just a bit too old to be really into it.
Yeah.
But like, if I
too.
was a kid, I would have loved this. I reckon.
Yeah, like-
because it's really fun, really kinetic, has pretty good jokes. Not all of them, but pretty solid. And yeah, and the plot, it's really well structured with the writing, as you pointed out.
Yeah, considering like the crap I used to watch, like yeah, this would have been like, this would have been like Citizen Kane to me as a kid.
Citizen Kane.
Because you watch like the '90s one, and all the cops have laser guns, and
I mean, these people have laser guns too.
there's that weird kind of like digital, like weird, like cryptic rock, like hard rock metal introduction. It's so weird. It's
Accompanied
got like
with
this
him.
like weird like synth distortion. It's like it was a weird show. And this one I think is close to kind of like the fun, peppy kind of '60s stuff that I think would like resonate a lot with younger kids. But yeah, like watching it, like I can understand its popularity, but you know, I'm probably not going to follow up on it or anything like that. Yeah, it was fun, but again, like I don't think the weekly cartoons resonate with me at this point.
I think that this is one of the best written shows in terms of its structure. Like, in terms of written for a serialized animation series. Like, it is incredible how they structure things in a way that keeps you thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? And also, they manage so many villains in the one episode. Like, they'll introduce characters that aren't going to come to play for ages. Like, they introduce Eddie Brock, who's Venom, in episode 1 as like a friend of Peter's, and he doesn't come to play as the actual Venom till like episode 13. And I love how they're able to manage all these, like micromanage everything, so then it gives you an idea of building this world before they then create these villains and make all these interesting changes.
There are very few unnecessary peripheral characters.
Definitely.
It-
Except for Danny Rand.
Are you sure it's Danny Rand or just a guy named Rand? Because they don't have the rights to Danny Rand.
Maybe
No,
it's just
it's-
a reference.
Yeah, it might be just, but yeah, whatever. I just found that really interesting. That's all.
But it feels like, because they also were inspired by the fact, because this is straight off Raimi's Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 had so many villains, just so much everything, and a lot of it wasn't managed the best.
Especially the dancing.
Yeah, especially the dancing. But like, even in the first episode, this manages to introduce the Enforcers, introduce the Vulture, introduce Norman Osborn, and all these characters and subplots, and yet never feels rushed.
I think it's
No,
because there's like a sense of mystery to it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
like,
it sets up everything.
yeah,
And in that sense, I think its writing just baffles me. Not baffles me, it really shocks
Impresses
me how
you.
good it is. Yeah. I think it really holds up in terms of its structure and how it works. And
Like-
I even love how before the theme song, it'll have like a little 2-minute clip that sets up, oh, this is what the episode's going to be about. And it'll show like a villain origin, or it'll show something that makes you think, oh, this is what this is going to be about.
Like, I really like the lizard in this because you have that 2 episodes of like, oh, this is Dr. Connors, these are his struggles, this is what he's trying to do. Then in the 3rd episode, he finally becomes the lizard, and then, you know, you feel
You
sorry
have a
for the
backstory.
guy.
You
Yeah.
really empathize with these characters, and you want none of them to lose because you feel for them. And I think the show does that really well.
The only bad thing is every episode is kind of like towards what we watched is an origin story
Yeah.
for the villains, and that kind of gets a bit eh.
I
But
feel
apart
like,
from that, it's a pretty solid show.
I feel like if we got past the first few episodes, that would become a lot less frequent.
Yeah, it would be more of like returning villains and all that.
So, should we start with the episodes? I've
Yes,
just done
let's
shit.
get to episode 1. I'm punching the air for no reason.
You're hurting my air.
Da 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 da.
Michael's dead. Okay, so the first episode is called Survival of the Fittest. Summer ends and the newest semester of school starts as Peter Parker enters the grounds determined to change for the better. He gets an internship at Dr. Connor's lab with his friend Gwen Stacy. While his alter ego, Spider-Man, battles the Enforcers and saves Norman Osborn, his best friend Harry Osborn's father, from the newly created Vulture. Well, the newly, established Vulture.
Christened.
Worried for the young boy's safety, Aunt May also instills a curfew on Peter.
That's it. The next. No.
Not the next. As an intro, mind if I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what I loved about this intro is the first minute where it introduces Spider-Man and it says, who could ask for a better life? And he's swinging through. That very much reminded me of the introduction of Spider-Man in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah.
Where it's just Peter narrating about what his life is. And it's basically a nice way of saying, look, we're not going to show the origin story because really you know this character like the back of your hand. And
There's something on the back of my hand I didn't know was there.
what is it? Mine's a finger. I'm actually a lizard.
Oh no.
Is that a joke from that Robots movie?
Yes, it is. But yeah, I really liked how this series introduced itself like that. Like, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did it in a more subversive, meta way with its humor and whatnot. But this was like a more straight played serious version of it. And I thought it worked really well because I don't think any of the other incarnations would have started with something like this.
I mean, it's pretty much just Spider-Man not beating up, but apprehending some robbers. One of them is Sandman, which you can immediately tell with that recognizable sweater of his.
Yeah.
He wears the same jumper to every job he pulls.
But as I said, no one's gonna expect that, so...
And it shows him swinging around, has some gorgeous 3D perspective, and then it plays the theme song, and then the rest of the episode starts. No, but as Ben said, it's got the surfer rock music, which really plays through the whole series.
I'm not sure if I like that.
I like surfer rock. It's so 2000s, and I get that it dates it, but I could see this teenage Peter Parker rocking out to 2000s.
No, it's a harken back to a weird era of television where every man on TV was hairless.
Anyway...
So, because there's not much to really talk about in terms of, chronologically, is there anything you really liked visual-wise?
Visually, I think Peter Parker looks a lot like Ben 10, and I don't know how I feel about that. It's just very... Because Peter Parker is meant to be that everyday guy looking generic. It's just he looks a bit too generic, which is... I guess that's why they added that little mole
But
under
Ben,
his
he's
eye.
got a mole, yeah.
It's completely different.
Oh no, I guess everything I just said is invalidated
It's
by
so
that one thing.
It's so they could later on do a clone arc where there's one of him that doesn't have a mole, and they're like,
Or
which
has a mole
one's
on the
Peter?
other side.
Mole on the other side.
No, he's got a mole in the shape of a goatee.
What? How can you have a mole in the shape of a
No,
goatee?
there's an old joke that an evil clone will always have a beard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because they're in Star Trek, an evil clone of Spock had the only difference was he had a goatee.
So that's why
Is
they
that
did
where
that in
it's from?
Community.
Yeah,
They
and
did it in Futurama,
in Futurama too. Yeah.
What else about the episode? Michael, you're a Marvel person. Speak.
I hated it.
Okay.
That was alright. That was good. I'm not sure if there's that much I can
Oh,
Alright, I guess I'll shut up then, Ben.
well, you just said you didn't have much to say. One of the standout animation pieces from this was the fight Spider-Man has against these two guards, one this really bulky guard, one this really not skinny but lithe with a really cool rod, and the fight choreography in that is really amazing, especially with the lens, like how when things get close to the lens, you can really see that perspective change.
Yeah.
They did that really well in this.
I think a lot of the I think a lot of the set piece fights are very creative.
Yeah, it's
Like,
as Stefan said, they're always different from each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, they never really reuse locations. All the locations, I mean, they are all urban locales, but they are usually interesting and kind of visually dynamic.
Even how he fights is different. Like, in this fight against these two guards, one has a pole, so he uses the pole to, like, maneuver himself around the guy and really get an angle on him. But I love how he uses the big burly guy's mustache to attack. Like, he slings onto his mustache and drags him down. Like, I love how they did little things like that. Just really paying attention to the fact that it is an animation and you can do fun things like this. What I really liked about the action scenes, which you kind of mentioned before, was how the foreshortening is done. Like, there are some really dynamic angles with how they put the feet.
Do you want to explain what foreshortening is?
Foreshortening is basically where you draw the leg of someone, but if it's stretched further into the camera...
Or further away from the camera?
Or further away from the camera. It's either close to the camera or further away in terms of how you view it.
Yeah, so, like, say if, like, someone's going to punch the camera, their fist would be really big compared to the rest of their body.
Yeah, it's really testing how well you know proportions. And this show does it in a very stylized and cartoony way that is just so kinetic. It's really great. And again, the choreography in these fight scenes is so punchy. Like, I remember I've seen the 60s Spider-Man. Those action scenes are horrendous.
Yeah, definitely.
And the
But
fact
these are so well planned.
That's
as
because
well.
they only drew 3 frames and they had to stretch it into 22 minutes.
that is a problem.
It may as well have been puppetry at that point.
No, puppetry probably didn't even exist in the 2D conventional way then.
No, I mean literally just wooden puppets, like marionettes. It would have looked better.
Something at the start that I really liked in terms of a little gestural animation is that Peter Parker comes down and he sees his aunt, like, talking to a friend about the financial troubles. And before he walks in, he wants to make it seem like he didn't hear at all. He, like, walks on the spot really loudly and tries to make it seem as if he's walking down the stairs. In terms of just a little animation gesture, that's a really interesting thing to do. Like, you could have just, I don't know, had him set it and then walked in. But the fact that they animated him stomping his legs just seems like a very kid thing to do. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there are nice little moments when they kind of go the extra mile and animate little idiosyncrasies in people's movement that they didn't really need to. But it's nice kind of character building that they're there anyway. Like the only one I noticed was the one where I forget who is he carrying the Vulture?
Yeah.
And he's swinging through the city, and with every swing, every time he shoots a web, he shoots with the opposite hand.
He's carrying Norman Osborn.
Yeah, he's carrying Norman Osborn.
Oh, Norman Osborn. And so he shoots a web, and then he'll throw Osborn to his other shoulder, and then use the other arm the opposite arm to shoot another web, and he'll just keep doing that. And like they could have easily gone the easy route, just having him slam over one shoulder and have the same arm do the same motion.
No, but they really went that extra mile.
They went that extra mile just to flip him over every time.
Which I think works really well to the fact that they really did emphasize the motion and it gives it that kinetic energy. But the thing I think it kind of falls short in is because the style is so simplified, it kind of looks wrong for the animation to look so good. Like,
I mean,
it's odd to have really good gestural animation for characters who don't have a lot of facial expressions. But I think it still holds up really phenomenally.
my only thing I didn't really like about this episode was at the very end, Peter Parker gets home at midnight, and Aunt May, she's like, "Oh, you can't stay out this late anymore. It's not summer holidays. You have a curfew at 10 p.m. now." But seeming as it's midnight and you're just about to go to bed, have some banana cream pie.
Look, I think that's a pretty legitimate thing. That banana cream pie would probably bring, like, really good dreams.
Oh, it did look very good.
Yeah,
but still.
Yeah, there's not so much of a there's not even like a where were you? Just have some cake and get out of my sight.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what she meant by that. The really nice Aunt May said that. What I really liked animation-wise, and I said this while we were watching it.
Not even my real son.
He's not even a son. He's like a nephew.
Nephew or great nephew?
I I think I remember reading that in the initial run of the comics, it was meant to be a great nephew because that's why Aunt May looks so much older than how an aunt.
Which is
you
why
know,
I
would
like
normally
the new
look.
Spider-Man films, how Aunt May is an actual appropriate aunt age.
Yeah, but no, she's always been an aunt. She was married to Peter's dad's brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe they were just older. in general.
They're not even related. They're two people who are just kind of together by circumstance.
Anyway.
What I really like is the cyclical storytelling sort of thing.
Cyclical.
Cyclical. I'm never going to get that word right.
Soliloquy.
But at the very start, Spider-Man has this monologue saying, what could be better than being Spider-Man, or something like that. And at the very end, he says something like, he relates to how Aunt May cares for him so much and how he has her to look after him. And he says, what could be better than having someone as wonderful as her?
Being Spider-Man, obviously.
You ruined the moment, Ben. No, but I really liked how we both got that crime-fighting side of Peter and his kid side, where he's saying, this person is everything to me, and I want to get this job to pay the bills and everything so I can protect her.
If you hear any crunching, Michael is eating lunch because Stefan's mum, she's so nice and she brought us some food to eat.
I tried not to draw attention to it.
But I did. But I could
But
definitely
now it's
hear
the focus of the podcast.
So now we're going to be talking about Michael eating for the next hour.
Crunchity, crunchity,
What have you
crunch.
been eating this week?
Should we move on to episode 2?
Yep, let's move on to the next episode. So, episode 2 is called Interactions. After an accident occurs in Dr. Connor's lab, electrician Max Dillon becomes the villain, Electro. He desires nothing more to be rid of his electrical anomaly. But Spider-Man battles him to try and safeguard the Connors, resulting in Electro's arrest.
Every time we talk about Max Dillon, I keep wanting to call him Max Watts.
Who's Max Watts?
No,
Watts, as in electricity.
Oh,
Watts.
that's so much a better pun!
It's also a comedy club in Melbourne.
Oh.
So- yeah, I keep wanting to say Max Watts.
It's kind of a shame he isn't called Max Watts.
I mean, that's just like another level of normative determinism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like with Otto Octavius or Professor Lizard, Kurt Connors.
Professor Lizard.
I will say, this episode, I really felt sorry for Electro, and he wasn't even meant to be a villain,
He's just
really.
he's just a tradie. he's just a contractor.
And just bad things just happened to him.
He's just
And Spider-Man pushed him to be a villain, really.
yeah.
And everyone was kind of a jerk in this.
Yeah, the hospital just has a cupboard full of supervillain suits that they put people in.
Yeah, because when someone needs to be like quarantined and put back to health, put them in the super intimidating,
like evil,
evil, destructive suit of
That has
electricity.
electricity tubes
yeah, like
in it
like
as well.
that's good.
like glowing vacuum tubes on his torso.
But in terms of the character writing,
Oh, it's really good.
yeah, I actually really like how this normal guy and Spider-Man's actions are what push him into a villain. Like, I like it that the hero himself is not flawless.
Yeah,
like, he has so many flaws. He caused so many problems.
Yeah, he couldn't drink his coffee. Oops, better murder New York.
No, that was the guy. That wasn't Spider-Man's fault. He just couldn't drink his coffee. No, but I really liked especially how they did the electricity in this. Like, I didn't like how it sometimes changed from being yellow to blue.
Yeah, he's... Like, when he goes to the hospital, he's crackling with blue electricity. But after he gets the suit, it's a yellow.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, no, it doesn't. It's just mainly a character key thing. Like, if you're going to introduce lightning as his power, either
colour-
choose blue or
Yeah. Like color
yellow.
can denote character traits, so I suppose that you should remain consistent.
And
But
the
he
fact
pointed it
that-
out as well, like the Vulture first suits up in green, and then when
And
he
then he's
first
red.
appears, he's red. Yeah,
It's an odd thing to do.
Yeah.
But, I really like, again, we mentioned it before, how they do climactic showdown set pieces. Like, the showdown between Spider-Man and Electro, and this took place on, like, what do you call those tower things?
Radio tower.
A radio tower, and there was electricity everywhere. It just had this real urgency to it in the fact that...
And Spider-Man even points out that this is a really bad place for him to be because
Yeah.
of all the metal and electricity.
Yeah, but it really heightened the urgency of the entire scene and really made it feel like a climax. And except I felt that it was too convenient that there was a swimming pool there. Like, there was no other option. It's like, oh, it just so happens there's a swimming pool right over there.
Well, how else are you going to defeat the electricity man?
Also, an electricity man falling into a pool I don't care what you say, he's dead. Like, he's not unconscious, he's not arrested, he's dead.
Especially from that height as well.
Yeah, like, how? How would he have survived that?
But
Especially-
suspension of belief.
Especially since it like faded out afterwards. I was expecting it to hard cut to a funeral.
Yeah, it just has funeral
Just
music playing.
it's like bagpipes and like.
No, at the beginning of this episode, there's some really nice swinging animation where he's swinging from a helicopter trying to get to school because he's late.
Oh, that one's nice.
Yeah, but it's like it incorporated 3D elements and 2D elements, and it was really
A lot of the
fast paced as well.
a lot of the vehicular action in the series are 3D models, or a lot of the
Yeah.
vehicles just are 3D models. Especially-
But I think in terms of, I think that 2000s animation handled their 3D assets quite well in terms of how they integrated it with their 2D animation. Like,
Oh, definitely.
this, you can tell it's a 3D asset when they use it, but they do it in a way where it stylistically matches almost seamlessly.
yeah, your outline and your cell shade.
Yeah, it works well, but I find
But
that
like, they get the right type of lining though.
Yeah.
because there's some more recent shows that have done it, and for some reason it just doesn't look as good. Like, I don't know whether it's because they just don't have as much manpower or the style isn't as defined,
There's
but it just doesn't feel as unified as the 3D assets in this do.
Does outlining work? Is it an automatic process? Does it just take? does
Sometimes we've used toon shading, but
Yeah.
it's not exactly a clean cut, oh, there's a perfect nice line.
yeah, does it take like color separation into account? Like, does it automatically, because like procedurally look at each frame and see where colors are separated, and then draws a line in between?
I remember the
It's-
one we used, it put a thick outline around the object's outline,
Outline?
but it never did like, it wouldn't do the inner lines unless you move the object
Yeah, because all
around.
it's taking is taking the outline of the model itself.
Yeah.
but not taking because
But sometimes you can do it like with contours and everything in the model, but it's
Yeah.
really tricky to get the very right consistency you want for every self.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought it was like an automatic kind of
No.
or yeah, like a procedural code thing. There we go. Learned something.
Oh, something I can mention, in terms of script writing, because I just love the script writing in this, is how it takes little things from the first episode and it keeps building on them. So in the first episode, Peter wanted to try and get pictures of Spider-Man and introduce this idea to JJ, what's his name?
J. Jonah Jameson.
That guy with the awesome voice. And he basically shut down the idea, but then eventually said, I have an idea. We need photos of Spider-Man.
I can't believe they kept the Hitler mustache.
It works, though.
Like, it
Yeah.
works. So they give him a little soul patch at the bottom
Yeah.
to make up for it.
Also, his facial animation is spectacular.
That seemed like yeah, he's so expressive. It seems like all the budget went into that in terms of facial animations.
Yeah.
Because like he's so kind of exaggerated and he's yelling a lot. I guess everyone else is
Yeah.
quite emotionally reserved.
Yeah,
but he's the most
because-
bombastic presence.
But because they all have a more simplified art style, you don't need that much facial animation. Like, you don't have any muscles or anything you can contort with. But for him, they make muscles just so they
Yeah,
can
he's got
contort
like
it.
these rippling like neck muscles because he's just like always on the verge of a heart attack.
Yeah, that was fun. But I really like how the little things that are set up in the first episode come back to be like
Recurring elements.
recurring elements that actually build into the plot. Like, Peter Parker sees that in this episode that they're looking for pictures of Spider-Man, and then there's a whole new subplot about him needing to try and take pictures of himself crime fighting so he can pay off Aunt May's bills. And I just like how things keep building and building from each episode. What's the word? The continuity.
Continuity.
The continuity plays itself in very subtle and yet meaningful ways, which I really like. Animation-wise, it's the same as most of the others. It's just really nice.
Yeah, it's just, if you haven't seen it, just at least go watch a clip so you get a sense of what the animation is. But it's pretty samey throughout most of it. It's just the set pieces are very extravagant and well done. And
Yeah,
you'll see.
It's a good
what I
way
mean.
to summarize it. Like, it may feel samey in terms of its motion, but in terms of its set pieces, it always tries to keep it fresh.
Definitely.
So, with that said, we've still got 2 more episodes to go through, so let's try and get through these quickly. So, oh no.
I gotta go at 3 o'clock.
Episode 3, Natural
Episode-
Selection.
Natural Selection. This is one of my favorite
How
episodes.
many did we watch? 4?
Yeah.
4.
Okay.
So, while Spider-Man makes a method of taking pictures of his crime fighting while in action, Dr. Connor injects his experimental lizard serum into his body to regrow his arm. The following day, when Peter and Gwen are invited to the lab for the good news, the serum changes Dr. Connor into a lizard man, whom runs off to cause havoc.
I love comic books.
With the antidote...
So stupid.
With the
Antidote.
The antidote.
With the antidote provided by Mrs. Connor and Gwen, Spider-Man saves Dr. Connor, returning him to a human. However, Peter gets scolded for his apparent choices during the night of taking photos instead of helping with making the antidote, and is fired from the lab. He considers taking the antidote to rid him of the Spider-Man gene, but thinks about his uncle and decides Spider-Man is still needed in the world.
Hooray!
This is the one episode where choices and consequences really come into play, because
I like this one.
I really feel bad for Peter in this.
Yeah, he's just stuck between so many hard places and many rocks, and he just doesn't have much
And he's
to
trying
do.
his best, and he's just
Yeah.
not getting the best of anything. Everyone thinks he's scum, and then everyone looks up to Spider-Man, but doesn't make the connection. These are the sort of episodes that make me wish, can't you just show him your Spider-Man, or can't you show Gwen that you're Spider-Man so she understands? Come on.
But no.
No, you can't. But the fact that it gets that audience reaction means that it's doing its job in terms of its emotional writing, right?
Yeah. Something I really enjoyed was, I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but the build up to the lizard. So in the first episode, you're introduced to Dr. Connors and how he has a robotic arm.
Yeah, the first shot of him is him
Yeah.
putting on his robotic arm and then his lab coat.
And then in the second episode, you see him trying to make an antidote with the lizards in his lab. And in this one, you finally see him inject it into himself, and he regrows his arm. And even though his wife is both happy but apprehensive at the start, but the next day she's just happy.
It's so... You pointed this out, Stefan, how she's just like, oh, your head, it's a miracle. Wait, did you have something to do with this?
Yeah, she kind of... it's so weird that she looks at it and goes, oh yeah, his arm may have grown back somehow.
It's like, wait a minute, you used that serum from the lab?
I thought this was just some magic thing that happened.
I thought this was the miracle I prayed to Satan for.
But I also really like how when the arm forms back, it does a weird tentacle thing where
Yeah,
the
it just generates a good 2 kilos extra mass, just explodes from his arm, like splits into tentacles, and then kind of just, like, congeals into
one arm.
limb.
See,
Yeah.
I don't like that, because lizards, when they regrow their limbs, they don't do that.
And they don't do it that fast either. Arms
Exactly.
don't pop out.
Like, maybe if it was like, they could have shown like a week time lapse where like, oh, every day he wakes up, it's a little bit longer. Oh, look, I have a tiny hand this day. However, for like a fast-paced show that this is, it does work.
Yeah, it bursts in the middle of the night, and then his wife thinks, oh, it's a miracle of Satan. Oh, no, wait, you did this.
You really keep honing on this Satan thing, Michael.
Well, he is
I just
known
think it's
for it.
yeah, it's weird that she's just like, it's a miracle. Wait a minute.
3 things I particularly liked in this was 2 are set pieces, of course, but in terms of animation, when he transforms into the lizard for the first time,
so
looks really disturbing. Like his face, his human face, like squashes in on itself to
Yeah,
become
his
that
skull
flat.
collapses. It's gross.
It's really sad because you know everything is going through and his family because his family is there.
Yeah, his
but it's
family's
also
such nice
terrifying
people.
as
It's
well.
it's that weird thing when like it kind of shows his bones contorting as well. Remember in that Incredible Hulk film in 2008, there's a bit when like Bruce Banner's on an operating table, he's turning into the Hulk,
Yeah.
and you can see like his clavicle like snap and then stretch out.
Ugh.
Like it's really gross. And then like the Mark Ruffalo one
Oh,
rolls.
Stefan, don't you like breaking bones and skin stretching?
Oh no, Ben, they're my favourite thing.
And
I knew it.
then the Mark Ruffalo one rolls around. He's just like, I'm angry. And then-
It just puffs up like a balloon.
yeah, he's like a little balloon man.
I keep finding it baffling how much the animation is important to this show. Like, that scene needed to look gross, but because it's such a simple style, it's really hard to make anything look gross, because everything looks so streamlined and clean and geometric.
It's more terrifying than gross, I would say.
Yeah.
Just because it is body transformation, and that is a really...
But, like,
thing.
I mean, in that style, it's hard to give that terror to it. I think the fact
I
that
think they
helps
did
it
well.
is they do some of the transformation in silhouette. And
Yeah,
that always works
definitely.
really nicely.
Also the sound design as well.
Yeah.
Like, you can hear the stretching and the breaking and everything.
I really like the train fight in this.
Oh, train fight is fun.
Again,
You know, it is pretty... I'm not usually a fan of subway train fights. I'm usually, like, in the
You
air.
like elevated train fights?
No, like in the Last Crusade, how they're on like in the desert and they're fighting on the
Excellent
train.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I'm not usually the biggest fan of subway ones because I feel it's a bit too constricted. But the way they do it in this,
But
it is better than a lot of other ones.
But the lizard is kind of like an underground, kind of like creepy crawly, kind of sniveling character, and I feel like kind of that dank and dirty subway tunnel kind of suits him.
I think it does too.
Like he fights everyone in a location that's more or less indicative of that character.
Yeah.
He fights Vulture in the sky. He fights a lizard underground. He fights Electro in
An
electricity.
electric pole.
Yeah, on a radio tower.
Radio
Yeah,
tower,
like
that thing.
I think that stuff is kind of neat and clever, and it makes each battle memorable. And there's a very clear thematic connection to the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the second set piece that you wanted to talk about.
Was just in the reptile sanctuary in the
Yes.
Bronx Zoo, which very specifically is the Bronx Zoo.
It literally says Bronx Zoo out in front.
I don't know why they wanted to make a real life zoo as where maybe it's for reference purposes where they could just get
probably.
real life things.
Is Bronx a real zoo?
Yeah. No, but yeah, I think that I love how it taints everything with like a green overlay to give it that really murky, like reptilian sort of aesthetic. And he battles a crocodile, and the crocodile is animated so cool.
I have to say though, it does get a bit confusing when the lizard is fighting Spider-Man and then it switches to the crocodile.
The crocodile is the other bad guy, Ben. We discussed
I know,
this.
but like as far as fight,
He's gonna be arrested, that
far-
crocodile.
as far as fight choreography goes though,
The crocodile gets arrested as an accessory to the crime.
What did you do against Spider-Man?
What do you got to say for yourself?
But as far as fight choreography goes, it wasn't the most clear that the rest of the season has been so far.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially if it's underwater. Like,
Yeah.
underwater is really hard to keep track of what's what.
Chief, I've been on the force 20 years. We can't crack him. I've never seen anybody like this.
It's
Okay.
almost like he's not human.
Inhuman.
And then Dr. Connor's kid, he comes in, and before there was a conversation about, oh, I don't want my father to forget about me now that he has lizard DNA in him. And then he does, and then he almost eats the kid if it weren't for Spider-Man.
So yeah, that whole message was completely pointless, was it?
Yeah, it kind of was.
Like, the message was, your father would never forget you, even if he was a monster. He turns into a monster. Oh, look, I guess your dad has forgotten you. Wow, Spider-Man's wrong about something again. Whoop-de-doo. No, but that was really fun, and again, I thought some of the visuals were done incredibly well and bitey, because you do feel sorry for this character, and seeing him be in this big battle seemed really like you were for both parties. Any notes from you guys on this episode?
I think I've said my... Oh, yeah, and then Spider-Man gets fired, as you said. And then he puts his... He gets the gene splitter, and then he puts it in his vent. And I wonder if that's going to play in a future episode. I don't know if it is. It could have been in that third season they planned, but never got around to doing.
I still think it should have been refrigerated. He should have put it in somewhere with like better atmospheric control.
Hey, Aunt May, I'm just going to put this secret potion thing in the fridge.
Don't
That's
drink it.
fine. Would you like a banana pudding? The solution to everything is banana pudding.
Oh, why, Peter? I saw that little beaker of vanilla extract that you put in the freezer, and I mixed it into the banana cream pudding.
No! Next week, Spider-Man versus the banana cream pudding. But what if he gave the vial to the crocodile? I mean, that crocodile that was in the sanctuary. Would he become like a human?
They just
crocodile?
burst into flames.
Spontaneous combustion.
So the fourth and final episode we looked at was called Market Forces.
This is my least favourite.
It's one of my...
What was this one about?
Yeah.
Again?
They had the shocker.
I know we only saw it like 35 minutes ago.
I'm
But...
literally about to tell you.
Oh, the shocker.
A high-powered suit is stolen by the enforcers, who give it to Montana, allowing him to become the Shocker so he may dispose of Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Peter is struggling to balance his crime-fighting life and normal life as he continually forgets to help his friend Harvey with his studies while trying to afford a proper camera to earn money to help pay the bills for Aunt May. Again, there's not much to really
It's a pretty
talk
straightforward episode. There's a new villain. He kind of has an origin story, I guess, and he talks in a southern accent, and Spider-Man mocks him for it.
Yeah, it's weird how the shocker isn't actually Herman Schultz in this, which is the Shocker in the original comic books. It's like one of the Southern enforcers.
Who is Montana? Is he anyone in the comics?
Yeah, he's an enforcer. He's just this group of 3 vaguely cowboy-ish.
It's Hannah Montana's dad.
Oh, I knew it.
Like-
Wait, no, that's Billy Ray.
He's
Cyrus.
living a double life too, that means.
Like-
He's Hannah Montana's dad. No, but there isn't even much of a big set piece in this particular episode.
No, I found this one kind of underwhelming.
Oh wait, no,
Yeah.
it had the theatre battle with Shocker, which was really... I liked how he battled in a theatre.
I like how kind of the seats all kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cute.
I also... One thing to note is, although most of it is traditionally 2D, besides those 3D assets, the Shocker's abilities, like
The
when he
concussive
flies,
blasts.
they're procedural textures and that based in, like, 3D.
Yeah.
Like, there's too many colours and whatnot to be, like, a 2D moving thing. Unless you were insane or worked on the Yellow Submarine, which means you probably were insane.
I'm never going to live down the fact that I made you watch Yellow Submarine, am I?
No.
But Peter Parker gets the job at the Daily Bugle, though.
Yeah, he does, in a very... I love how everything with, Jonah, what's his
J. Jonah
J.
Jameson.
Jonah Jameson. Nothing ceremonious or anything. He kind of just gets the job and then he just rushes in, grabs his photos, calls them crap, and then walks out. There's no congratulations or anything. I do like how that character has always been the same in that he is rough, he is gruff, but he's got this weird endearingness to him where he cares about people, but he's very bitter about it.
Yeah, it's been talked about a lot, but like, yeah, there's kind of like this underlying kind of heart of gold to the character in a lot of incarnations. Like people always talk about the specific example in the Raimi trilogy, how he seems to have like this utter disdain for Peter Parker, but when like the Green Goblin actually like
Flies in and tries to
bursts
interrogate
into
him.
his office and interrogates him, like who takes the pictures of Spider-Man. Like he just flat out refuses to tell him. Like he just lies to him. Like and even just instinctively, just straight away, he just says like I don't know who takes them.
I just get him in the mail.
Yeah, get him in the mail. Yeah, just kind of like interesting kind of like a softness to him. And I really like him just as a character.
Before we go on to final thoughts, anything on this episode? Last stuff?
Oh, he does an Indiana Jones where he escapes total and utter destruction by going in a fridge.
Oh yeah, that never works. That was so stupid. Like, I can suspend my belief in reality, but that doesn't work. You can't... Even when I
That's
saw
the
him...
point when you tune out. Not, oh, we have a burn victim in our hospital. Quick, get the supervillain suit out of the cupboard.
So, could we probably just go on final thoughts on this one?
Yeah.
Yep, final thoughts. Ben, start us off.
My final thoughts are that, again, I am currently I'm 23. This isn't targeted towards me, but I can definitely appreciate it for what it was at the time. Yeah, it's really like there are elements that I definitely would watch. Like if I could I would watch it. Like I would continue to watch it if I definitely had the time and interest in it. And yeah, it's a pretty solid series. Like if you have a little sister, or if you have...
Or even if you're a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah, if you just know a little kid who is really into Spider-Man, I would definitely show it to them. Or, like, yeah, maybe look at some highlights on YouTube. What are your final thoughts?
It is fine. I have basically the same opinion as Ben.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, I can appreciate it. I can appreciate it, and I really like kind of comic books, and I like seeing another kind of adaptation of these characters, and it's nice to see. Like the characterizations across all like the villains and how they're introduced is really clever and really endearing, but I'm so far removed from the target audience of the show that like it doesn't really like it doesn't resonate with me. Like it doesn't really stick. Like I kind of enjoy the flashiness and the colors while it lasts, but
And
That wasn't a word.
what about you, Stefan? What are your final thoughts?
I can completely understand your opinions. For me, I like it based on it as a production. I don't even see it as Spider-Man most of the time. I just look at it and go...
That's a shame because it's very heavily rooted in that kind of thing.
No, I mean, I view it more objectively. Like,
Yeah.
I look at it like, man, in terms of a kid's show that was structured to appeal to these certain aspects, it really hits the nail on the head on all these different things. And I think it really does a successful job of keeping all the animation fresh and doing all these things that would make it stand out in the 2000s animation market. But nowadays, yeah, it does date a bit, and it doesn't have an overlasting appeal that would appeal to a super older audience rather than the kiddie audience it's trying to appeal to.
So yeah,
It's definitely worth a watch, I reckon, even if it's just looking at some battle scenes just to see how the animation really holds up.
Yeah, nice incorporation of 3D and 2D, like conventional and digital, so...
okay, so that's the end of the Spectacular Spider-Man 2008-9 series.
What are you laughing at, Stefan?
Just you. You're the best.
Okay, so basically 3 bits of animation news. The second trailer for Spies in Disguise came out.
Next
starring
animation
It looks
news now.
exactly
Will
the
Smith
same.
and Tom Holland.
Looks exactly the same.
If you don't know what it is, Will
Good.
Smith is a super secret spy who isn't that secret because everyone knows his name.
yeah.
And Tom Holland, who's a scientist who works at his spy agency, develops something that can make him disappear. So Will Smith drinks it and he turns into a pigeon.
This is like a movie you see, like, on in the background in other movies.
Look, it's
This
really...
looks like one of those fake trailers before Tropic Thunder.
Look, because it's from Blue Sky.
He was a man who had everything, but one boy would turn him into a pigeon.
Rated PG-13.
Will Smith is Spy Pigeon.
Because it's
They're
from...
gonna stage a coup.
Okay, I'm just gonna... I'm gonna continue. I know. I know. So it's from Blue Sky, so it's really gorgeous, but the story we obviously aren't that crazy about. I remember the cartoon Pigeon Boy.
Oh yes, I do very much. That was something on itself, isn't it? We should watch that. No, we shouldn't.
Maybe when Spies in Disguise comes
We've
out.
given way too much time already to Spies in Disguise.
Okay, the next animation news is they're making a Gremlins prequel series for DreamWorks.
Stop making prequels.
Why prequels? Does that mean it's going to be set in the early 1980s?
1920s.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so
No.
Is
I'm-
Gizmo really old? Or are
I
they
don't know.
different Mogwais?
It could be a different Mogwai. I'm not sure. I like the first Gremlins film. The second one's a parody, so when I watched it, I wasn't expecting it. And
I love the
just-
second one. I kind of like it better than the first.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
I
But
love how it's just like it's just balls to the wall. It's just like it's absolutely insane.
see, I need to watch it knowing it's a parody. Okay, the last animation bit of news is there was a new trailer for Weathering with You, the new
Makoto Shinkai film.
yeah. And it's really interesting like how it was structured because for the first 1 to 2 minutes there was a really great montage of his previous works for it, like saying, oh, this is his style and everything, all the themes that he encompasses in his films, and then it gives like an extended trailer of the next film. Next week we'll be talking about The Lion King, the old one from 1990 whatever.
We originally did a first episode on it, but it is a lost episode because we literally lost.
Are we
it.
doing
No.
The Lion King next week?
Yeah.
Oh no!
So it was actually our first episode, but
We don't need to watch it again. We watched it like how long have we been doing this?
About 3 months ago.
Yeah, I remember it.
okay, well, yeah, you don't have to watch it, but audience, watch it.
It's got some
If you
lines
want.
in
Audience,
it,
saw
doesn't it?
2 of you. Mel, we know you're out there.
Yeah, and yeah, it was our first episode, but my microphone stuffed up and it just it didn't record anything.
Oh, yeah, so it's all Ben's fault.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, we get to blame Ben.
Hooray.
That's what I do best.
Anyway, that is the end of the podcast. If you want to contact us, I'm just going to say our email because, you might want to email us. We are at animate3pod.
Forward all abuse too.
Yeah, animate3pod@gmail.com. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcasts on iOS, Overcast, Castbox, Podcast Addict,
How do you remember
Podbean.
this?
Because I had to sign us
I
up.
was surprised when we got on iTunes.
And we're probably on other places that we don't know of. And yeah, that's the end.
Yeah.
Make sure to tune in next week for the for the Lion King. The old one, not the new one. Bye. Dun dun dun.
The end.
What are you looking up? The green frog one day died. Oh wait.
The little green frog one day, and the frog
go. Gloom, gloom, gloom.
It's a haunting. It sounds horrifying.
It sounds like a Russian folk song. Like it's gonna slowly get faster.
La di da di da. La di da di da. We all know frogs go. La di da di da. We don't go. Gloom, gloom, gloom.
I don't remember anything else from that song. I'm surprised you remember all of it.
You know what? I'm pretty sure I sung that in the shower like 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
don't know where it came from in my head. Probably Amphibia.
There, Stefan, you got something for the post credits.
I know, I got something for my nightmares. Thank you for that, Michael.